All right, let's start reading chat. Ramattra storms a Season 2 Battle Pass, unlocking for free at level 45 or immediately for premium Battle Pass. As Overwatch's first tempo tank, Ramattra can change between two forms moment to moment based on what his teammates need. With this tactical training of a lethal soldier, discipline, and devout monk, Ramattra can be your greatest asset or your worst enemy. Man, I know why they started off like this with the premium pass thing, but it's always just funny to me. And sad. Mostly, I laugh now with tears. Embark on a pilgrimage to our latest escort map, Shambali Monastery. Shambali? I think I'm pronouncing that right. Where you can explore ancient temple grounds, traverse winding village streets. Follow in the footsteps of countless Omnics, some who may be familiar to on the uphill trek to the Sanctum. Advance through the battle pass and rewards, blah, 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 blah. General updates. Control game mode. You fixed a bug regarding overtime on control maps. However, that fix led to other bugs we had to resolve. Ultimately, this led to some anticlimactic gameplay results we weren't happy with. After hearing player feedback, we've made the following change. Whenever a point is captured on control, the team losing control of the point counts as having contested the point for purposes of overtime, even if they were not present. For example, if Team A and Team B have current control and Team A take back the point, overtime will automatically trigger and start to burn down unless Team B can touch it again. At lower capture percentages, this change will have no impact on the game, only for overtime. So this is just fixing the overtime bug that a lot of people were noticing where you would just cap and automatically win. And apparently, originally, it was a bug. Like they even say here, we fixed a bug. And so apparently just the way control points worked on Koth was just a bug for the last 5 years, which, you know, whatever. And so everyone was just like, wait a minute, hold up. And they say it was a bug, and so they fixed it, and everyone went, hey, this is actually a lot less fun. You can change it back. And so they are changing it back, which is nice. So I'm glad they actually listened to the community here and just said like, yeah, sure, go for it. Have your overtime back. Because it actually is a lot more fun to have those last second fights. So it's a lot more fun now. What do we got over here? We've added a hero purchase tab in the shop. I don't want to see this. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. The Season 2 competitive play begins now. Here are some updates we're introducing to competitive. There are new temporary competitive title rewards for name cards based on your end of season rank. We actually saw that. That was the thing when I popped into the game and I just loaded it. It said top 500 challenger. That I think is what these temporary titles are. You can only earn these titles at the end of the current season, and I can only use them in the season following. So one season titles, heroes that are not yet eligible for competitive play will have a lock icon in the hero gallery. What this is applying to, chat, is, you know, at the start of a season when characters are locked. Now they actually show it's locked and ranked in the hero gallery. Or, you know, if they just have to disable a character and leave it turned off for, you know, like 3-4 weeks, months, years, you know, it's a shame. I hope something happens to Sojourn like that soon. Implementing a group of matchmaking enhancements to improve match quality. Nice. Always good to see that. Minor polish improvements. New hero Ramattra will not be available in comp for 2 weeks. Nice. The 2 weeks combined with the move from level 55 to 45. Hopefully, if you play casual, you can unlock it by the time it gets unlocked and ranked. But honestly, chat, Ramattra doesn't seem insane so far from what I've seen, so we'll see. Hero updates. Damage roll passive no longer applies a move speed bonus. Reload speed bonus increased from 25 to 35. We've decided to remove increased move speed from the damage roll passive and in turn make the reload speed more significant. While the additional move speed was a helpful indicator that passive was active, we saw a change in speed negatively affect the ability to aim. Chat, this kind of goes, just by the way, this reasoning here, this is perfectly in line with the logic of last season and a lot of how Blizzard is doing balance changes with regards to Overwatch 2. They are very explicitly, and they're being very blunt about it. They're not hiding it at all. They're balancing around gold players or silver players, like the vast majority of the game. And so if something isn't good for that level of player, they will just tweak and change the game specifically for them by any possible way. That's why last season, right? Remember, Sojourn last season was insanely busted, but she was technically not actually that good for players under Masters. So even though everyone at my level and like MMR, you know, and obviously everyone in chat's level as well, because you're all top 500 players here, we can be open with each other. Yeah, she was busted as fuck. And so because of that, it's always awkward to balance characters for a higher level versus lower level of play. But they are very obviously picking one. You know, they're like, no. Sojourn was busted, you know, but she's not busted for most of the game, so we're not going to worry about it. The damage passive makes it harder to aim. Change it. The tank, Ramattra. Ramattra has been added to the lineup. Fire stream projectiles. Create a barrier. Transform into Nemesis form, charging her attacks, getting bonus armor. Punch forward, creating a wave of piercing energy with every swing. Secondary, reduce damage to block. Ravenous Vortex, fire nanoball, which explodes, hits the ground, spreading a damaging field. Affected enemies are slowed and pulled downward. And then your ultimate, enter Nemesis form, creating an energy swarm surrounding yourself. The swarm will lash out towards nearby enemies, dealing damage and pausing duration when damage is dealt. You'll see a bunch of Ramattra gameplay later, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But basically, Ramattra is, they call it a tempo tank, but he just has two stances. He has like a little bit of poke, and then like a kind of a basic shield that kind of places like a Symmetra wall or a May wall. And then after that, he just transforms, starts punching stuff, and then he doesn't actually feel super crazy. And honestly, I intentionally try to avoid, a lot of creators record Ramattra gameplay and stuff. I actually intentionally avoided Ramattra this time around because I wanted to go into it a little more blind. So all I have on this are my friends' thoughts on it, and their first impression from people like Flats and Emong were like, he's okay. Not great. And I think a lot of that is also just because if you notice looking at his abilities here, chat, he has no move speed, like nothing to close the distance, no mobility. So except slower speed. Yeah. So Lucio requirement, I don't know, probably. I mean, if it depends on, also, can we just wait, stop on the Ramattra stuff. Let's ignore all this because we'll talk about Ramattra better when we're in game. Chat, I just want you to scroll here and just look at the level of Doomfist changes. Okay? You don't need to see anything. You don't need to worry about anything. Just look at the raw number of them. And let's read the comments. Developer comments. There are several changes here for Doomfist with the intent to increase his presence as a disruptive brawler-style tank. The buff to his passive will help him stay in the fight longer, especially when he's hitting multiple enemies with his abilities. The changes to Power Block and Meteor Strike are intended to increase the availability of Empowered Rocket Punch, which enables him to more easily disrupt enemies and impact multiple targets. Due to gaining Empowered Rocket Punch more consistently, the stun duration and size are slightly decreased to reduce some of the frustration in playing against it. But for Rocket Punch, we're shifting some of its damage away from requiring wall impacts so that it is more broadly useful regardless of where fights are taken. There's a lot of changes here. Impact damage increased from 15 to 30 to 25 to 50. Wall slam reduced from 20 to 40 to 10 to 30. So if you guys were used to getting punched into a wall and like you could kind of take a punch and not worry about it, you're going to have to worry about it a little more often. Empowered wall slam stun reduced. And more importantly, chat, is this line, which a lot of people won't understand. But it says non-empowered punch now stuns. So basically, you know how Doomfist would punch you into the wall and you could always move unless they're empowered? He will always stun you now, even if he's not powered up. So he can set up his additional shots a lot easier on you. It will always stun for minimum. So he can always set up that like one shot. So it just gives him a little more like lethality, a little bit spookier. Empowered radius reduced from 4 to 3 meters. Minimum time before cancel. I mean, so basically you can like punch and instantly cancel. Cooldown reduced from 4 to 3 seconds. This is probably one of the most impactful changes. Just straight up, because punching and giving them just straight up more punches is absurd. 1 second doesn't sound like much until you remember that the cooldown is 4. So going from 4 to 3, that's a lot of punches. This has been in since his rework, but was not mentioned. Oh, really? Wait, it says right here. Is this? Oh, so this was passive. Okay, so don't worry about this. Don't worry about this. I didn't read the next line. Sorry. Man, I always get baited by stuff like this. They did this with the Junkrat change too in the other patch notes where they toss in the trap. And it's like, wait, we changed this like last week. So nothing changed? Well, all of this changed. So the damage and the stun changed. So basically, Doomfist no longer has to punch you into wall to do damage. But if he does, even if he's not charged, he will do a mini stun. And I assume this cooldown reduce is specifically has been in here and was not mentioned. I'm assuming this is only applying to this one line. Power block reduce 8 to 7 second cooldown. Duration 2 to 2.5, so he can actually block longer. Minimum damage mitigated to required to empower the punch reduced. So basically, blocks longer, blocks more often, and you can charge him up easier. Meteor Strike now empowers punch on landing. So immediately after he ults, he can punch you. And on top of that, you are slowed now for 3 seconds, not 2 seconds. So 50% longer slows after he ults. Also, his maximum temporary health increased from 150 to 200. And every time he hits you, instead of getting 30 health, he now gets 40 health. So there are a lot of big buffs here. There are a lot of big Doomfist buffs here. At a high level, by the way, the moment I see these patch notes, again, I think back to the philosophy of how Blizzard has been balancing Overwatch 2, right? They are balancing for your average player, not necessarily your high-end one. And so when I see these buffs, I go, cool, I'm about to go get like dunked on by every Doomfist player in top 500 because the gold Doomfist player isn't as good as them. So high MMR games are about to probably be very Doomfist centric. But for everyone else, I don't know. Maybe it just means that Doomfist is now just more viable for you in general. But I'm not looking forward to this because getting punched by Doomfist sucks. Playing against Doomfist is very annoying. But also, fortunately, we might not have to worry about it too much if their queue times are like 40 minutes long. Junker Queen. Commanding Shout is Junker Queen's primary tanking ability and utility, but the additional survivability proved to be too powerful. It needed to be tuned down significantly in a previous patch. We're looking to shift more of that survivability in Junker Queen herself by increasing the amount of her passive ability heals through dealing damage with wounds. Torso and head hitbox increased 12%. Wound duration reduced from 5 to 4.5, so they're nerfing her ultimate by half a second, but reducing the cost by 10%. If this wasn't in a patch note, I probably wouldn't notice. Commanding Shout reduced from 15 to 14 seconds, a 1 second cooldown reduction on Shout. Adrenaline passive healing increased from 1 to 1.25 damage dealt by wounds. Does anyone have the math on how much that affects her actual self regen? Because increasing her self healing by 25% when it was already so little doesn't seem to do much. In fact, I would actually say that all of these changes combined with the hitbox change, this is overall a nerf to Junker Queen, which is kind of hilarious. Flat said 15 to 19 HPS per target. Okay, yeah, that's a nerf. They actually, that I think could be like a net nerf to Junker Queen just because changing the character's hitbox, who's kind of small, but then only giving her back a tiny bit of HPS back in her lifesteal. Yeah, I think that just doesn't add up. I actually think this could potentially just end up being a nerf, but we'll see. There's also a part of me that kind of wonders, are they scared of Junker Queen because she was previously meta for so long in Overwatch League? And by Overwatch League, what I mean is that entire patch. Like, if you guys weren't playing in beta, Junker Queen had an insane patch where every team played Junker Queen. They hit the shout and they just ran at each other. It was meta in Overwatch League, and I'm not implying that they're balancing around Overwatch League at all, but rather what I'm trying to say is they're scared of buffing her because she was already once so overpowered. And so I think because of that, they're scared of changing her a little bit because it's like they're dealing with the context. When I think of these changes, I try and think of like, okay, what is a balanced team worried about here? And it would not surprise me at all that, you know, internally, Junker Queen has already gone through a significant meta time in beta where she was insanely busted, insanely overpowered. They had to nerf her. I can see them being a little bit spooked to buff her up even a little bit. So I get it, why they're hesitant. But also, I'm not sure how this will shake out. My first instinct says this is actually a nerf, which is kind of random as hell and hilarious. All right, damage. Bastion! Hey, that's my guy. The intent for Bastion's ultimate is that enemy players can survive it if they are quick to react to the damaging impact areas. However, it ended up being too easy to avoid the damage areas entirely. We're reducing both the amount of warning time and explosion damage, so it's more reliable in dealing damage, but it won't be as lethal the closer the target gets to the edge of the range. Delay before projectile drops reduced from 1 second to 0.6 seconds. Explosion damage reduced from 300 to 250. Does that make up for the point? Like, can you even escape a Bastion? This is insane. No longer deals explosion damage to self. Oh, so I can ult myself if someone's pushing me. Minimum delay between placing shots reduced by 20%. So I can spam all 3 on a person faster. They do 250 damage, but it lands, dude, it lands so much faster. Okay. I am really curious about this. So the interesting, and reconfigure cooldown reduced from 12 to 10 seconds. This is actually a big buff to Bastion because Bastion as a character is very dependent on turret form as he runs around. And so a lot of the time you are just kind of sitting there going like, boop, 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 and you like throw your one grenade, which like bounces around, does nothing, but if it hits someone, they immediately explode and it feels cool. And then you eventually go, you know, you turret up and you just push. These are massive buffs to Bastion across the board. The only, I mean, even like if I go in game right now and I'm just going to try and look at my win rate real quick. I was curious if I looked at last season's win rate, right? So like competitive, wait, is this season, wait a minute. I guess this is season 0. Interesting internally. Did not know that. Let's scroll from my Bastion win rate, I guess. So Bastion, I played 7 hours of Bastion, right? If I click on him, I have a 51% win percentage, which obviously is kind of mediocre because I'm top 500. But it means that he is a viable character, right? And so one of the weakest points about Bastion, though, was specifically that his ultimate in season 1, like he didn't have an ultimate, right? It was that bad. People would pop it in spawn. It was the worst ultimate that's ever existed. And now he actually has a viable ultimate. And so I could see Bastion becoming very powerful. And 0.6 seconds is ridiculous. That is very, very fast. It'll be very, very interesting. Sojourn. The dev comment, Sojourn is performing well at the highest tiers of competitive play, but poorly below those tiers. Much of the perception that she is too powerful seems to be driven by the reaction dying at long-range charge headshots from her railgun's secondary fire. These changes are aimed at reducing frustrations there, with the biggest change being the reduced critical multiplier for headshots. A fully charged headshot will no longer kills a full health 200 HP hero. To help account for this loss of power, we're increasing the damage of primary fire and how quickly her energy charges during her ultimate. Energy delay before draining reduced from 8 to 5 seconds, so she can no longer hold charge forever. Secondary fire damage fall off starting range reduced from 70 to 40 meters. Secondary fire critical damage reduced from 2 to 1.5. So this, by the way, moves her to 195 damage, I believe. So she can just barely not one-shot you. And then secondary fire now scales linearly. I don't know the specifics how this works. Primary fire per projectile is increased from 9 to 10 and overclock increased by 20%. So they buffed Sojourn's ultimate and they buffed her overall damage and they nerfed her cross map range. So again, like I said earlier, Blizzard is very specifically balancing for gold players. So unfortunately for high level players, it seems this will be until new tuning or new changes, this is another season of Sojourn. They buffed the ultimate, they buffed her overall damage. She can almost one-shot you. She could still one-shot with Mercy Pocket, which is very common on ladder. And there's no change to her grenade, no change to her grenade radius or the audio visual cues, no change to her mobility and how she can fly across the map. And they actually buffed her normal damage from 9 to 10. So yeah. And she shoots 20% faster in her ultimate. So, you know, we memed about it a little bit last season. How like, oh, Sojourn's underperforming under Masters. I guess they're going to buff Sojourn. And this isn't, I mean, I'm going to have to actually wait to play it. Because I think this could either, I think you could make an argument this is actually a buff for most Sojourn players in the game. And how they play. Because most people, especially at lower ranks, and this is what they kind of understand, at lower ranks, Sojourn is actually not very good. And so the devs, again, are balancing for very particular for lower level players. And so they look at it. It's also hard for me to even like take them or even give them that opinion, though, because it like makes my personal experience in their game so garbage. Right? Like, I know that immediately when I log into rank today, that it's going to be Doomfist Sojourn every game. And it's going to be so obnoxious. And that's, for my personal experience playing the video game, it's about to be terrible. So, I'm not looking forward to having a good time. I think it's going to be a repeat of Season 1, and you're going to have to wait until more changes on this. The one interesting thing about this, though, particularly for the Doomfist stuff that we were talking about earlier, is Bastion. Bastion is the interesting one to me because Bastion is the big punisher, weirdly enough, of Doomfist players who aren't very good. Because like, if you just put up your arms and you start blocking in front of a Bastion, he just kills you. And so if you're not very good at Doomfist, Bastion is actually really scary. It sounds really funny, but I think there's a lot of bad Doomfist players on ladder who are about to get absolutely owned by Bastion. It'll be funny. It'll be funny. But yeah, Sojourn maintains her strength. And I mean, the embargo has lifted, and so it was actually very funny when I was chatting to people who were playing in like the internal tests for like creators had access to the Ramattra server for like the last, I think like week or so, maybe not week, maybe a little less. I forget the time frame. And there were people just sweating playing Sojourn. We're just like, but why? and everyone was so sad. We're like, please, no, not again. Oh God. Symmetra. The change to Symmetra's primary fire will make her gameplay faster by enabling her to charge up the beam to dangerous levels more quickly. However, it will also drain to less lethal levels at an increased rate when not damaging a target. We're reverting the adjustments to her ammo management because while it helped with matchups where there were no barriers, it lost something interesting for its interactions. Beam, charge up, and decay increased by 20%. Primary fire consumption rate increased from 7 to 10. Primary fire now gains ammo from damaging barriers. I mean, I am very interested in how this charge rate feels because it's hard to get a good picture of 20%. I think what they're trying to reduce, chat, is that feeling that like Symmetra gets her charge and she has charge for the rest of the fight and she's about to snowball and kill everyone, right? Which is why they buff the decay rate so it falls off faster, but also they want you to be able to use the left click more in a straight up fight. So this could go either way. I'm not sure how this is going to shape up, but I do like the attempt to try and make it so she's not so snowbally. Like if she's just full charge, she just runs your team and just starts melting everybody because she is kind of a noob stomper. For those who don't know, Symmetra, I think historically has the highest win rate in the game and no one comes close. It is. And so I think what they're trying to tweak here is specifically reducing her snowball potential, but making her more like normal. Really? Yes. Symmetra historically in Overwatch's history has always had the highest win rate in the game and no one comes close. And it's always been a really weird one for the devs because it's like, it's a character who is not very good but she is the ultimate noob stomper. Let me go look. Do you have any proof of this? Let me look up. And they talked about this a little bit. There was a blog post on stuff like this. I could go look again, but I don't remember where the blog post is off the top of my head. Also, yeah, I should have blown up the text way earlier. Sorry, chat. I wasn't paying attention. Tracer. We balanced Tracer's damage in a previous patch due to an undiscovered bug regarding her pulse pistol's fall off damage. The bug is resolved, so we are now reverting the damage. Damage increased from 5 to 6. Doesn't sound like a bunch, but that is a very large Tracer damage buff. That's big. It's a big Tracer damage buff for sure. So it's gonna be interesting. You can now one clip people again. Yes. And it says here they fixed the Tracer fall off bug. The bug is resolved. So we'll see. I would expect at a high level Tracer to be absurd. Just with giving her even just a little bit more dangerous damage. We'll see. So you can see a chart of unmirrored win rates in this post. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is going back to the Symmetra stuff. There's all sorts of stuff like this. Hero weighted usage rate. Hero unmirrored win rate. I forget. It had all sorts of stuff, if I remember correctly, about like Symmetra being insane. And so they were testing a lot of stuff with Symmetra back then. This was back in beta. So you guys can see when we were talking earlier about Junker Queen being insane during beta, like look at her win rate back in early beta and they had to tone her down. And then obviously Symmetra near the top as well. And you can see they actually tweaks a lot of stuff about Symmetra down here. And you can also see Sojourn's win rate as they were tweaking Sojourn during beta as well. Her win rate was not particularly good, which kind of matches their perception, I guess, surrounding the character. Or like, not perception, but you know what I mean. Anyway, as for Tracer, Tracer's getting buffed. Expect Tracer to be meta for high level players again to an extent. It'll be, I have to really see this to get the proper feeling for it. I do want to say that my gut feeling when it comes to this patch immediately is that Doomfist will be meta, and then it would probably be Sojourn will maintain meta status and be ridiculously strong for high level players. And if anything, she might have even be considered buffed compared to last season, but she doesn't have one-shot capability cross map anymore. And then tracers, particularly highly skilled tracers, will be very, very common. Ana, Sleep Star is one of the most powerful CC abilities in the 5v5 with the additional cleanse offer a potential counter. We're comfortable reducing the cooldown. 15 to 14 seconds? Okay. Blizzard, you've gone too far. Okay? You've gone too far. This is messed up. I can't believe they've done this, dude. This is huge. It's a game changer. Yeah, what the hell is this? Oh, man. 15 to 14 seconds. Oh. Ana's gonna be too powerful. How are we supposed to stop the Anas now? This is funny. They do this type of thing where like they do these small tweaks sometimes, and I don't get it, but at least it's funny, so I'll just take it. Kiriko. The hit volume adjustment is to help address her arm, sometimes blocking headshots in some of her animations. Kiriko feels balanced overall, but her ultimate could feel too frantic at times. So we're reducing both the damage or move speed and cooldown rate boost at Grant, so that's easier to aim during its effect for both allies and enemies, as well as there being fewer abilities being thrown about. The rest of the changes are primarily for quality of life improvements to make the ability better to use. Arm hit volume reduced 15%. So Hog players, for those who don't know, Hog players could not one-shot Kiriko because she had her hand in front of her face like this. She was literally just like, you can't headshot me, and like hiding behind her arms, dude. It was fucked up. And so they nerfed her arms. She is not nearly as buff. Kitsune Rush ultimate cost increased by 10%. Movement speed bonus reduced from 50 to 30%. Cooldown rate reduced from 3 to 2 times faster. Suzu cast time reduced from 0.15 to 0.1 second. This change right here, by the way, is actually really important. Sounds very, very minor, but Suzu had a cast time and it would expand an AoE outward. So when you threw it down, if you were a Kiriko player and you wondered why it felt laggy sometimes, or just you died but you threw it down, this is why. A lot of the time, like the cast time, it had a cast time, and then it also had to hit the ground, and then after it hit the ground, it had to expand outward. So there was like 3 separate little mini hidden timers in the cast time of Suzu, so it was annoying to use. But now you can just throw it out a little bit faster. So they are making it more smooth. Kunai increased from 12 to 15. Swift step ability input can now be held to activate. This is actually a kind of a cool quality of life change. Ability input can now be held. What that means, chat, is like, let's say if you're a Kiriko and you were flanking, or like you're out in the middle of nowhere and you had to get back to your team, you would just like immediately 180 and start spamming shift. Now you just hold shift and you just spin your mouse and you'll just TP to the first person you mouse over. It's going to be nice. It's going to be nice. But talking about Kitsune Rush here though, ult cost increased by 10%, move speed reduced 50 to 30%, cooldown rate reduced from 3 to 2 times faster. I mean, honestly, Kitsune Rush as an ability to even be putting into a video game, period, sounds absurd on every level. Is it a buff or a nerf? It's a nerf. I don't understand how it even got into the game to begin with. Like, the idea that, oh yeah, my ultimate gives my entire team 50% move speed and also gives everyone 3 times faster cooldowns. It's like, what? It feels genuinely so absurd to even like put into a video game to begin with. Oh yeah, and fire rate. Yeah, and fire rate. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot the attack speed. Forgot the attack speed part of it. So it was basically like the equivalent of nano boosting your entire team. All right, let's keep going here. Mercy. Developer comments. This is a change that will enable Mercy to better defend herself or even go on the offensive at times. In 5v5, these situations occur much more often. Weapon swap time reduced from 0.5 to 0.35 seconds. Blaster ammo increased from 20 to 25. This is big. This is Battle Mercy. I'm excited. You know, supports were complaining a lot in Overwatch 2 chat. I just don't understand why they complain with these massive buffs. All right, like first you have Mercy's ammo, Mercy's blaster swap time, and then you have on a sleep dart. Cooldown reduced from 15 to 14 seconds. I mean, how can supports claim it? How can supports in Overwatch complain with these amazing changes? How, dude, how can they must be eating good. They're having a great time. Oh god, dude. Season 2 map pools push morning, evening, morning, hybrid, Blizzard World, overcast, parentheses, new. Oh yeah, have you guys, chat, I live in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area. Like, if you guys want your overcast depression weather, it's now on Blizzard World. Like, if you want to be depressed in game as well, don't worry, it's coming. I actually ran around Blizzard World and I can tell you it is actually ridiculously well done. I mean, Blizzard art in general is ridiculously well done, but also reminds me a little bit too much of home. So straight London weather. Yeah. Yes. It is very pretty though. I'll give you that. It is very, very pretty. Escort, night, new map, Shambhala Monastery. Oh yeah, it's a night mode map. Control. They changed the weather on all the different maps, basically. So Nepal's now in the evening, Oasis in the morning. All sorts of stuff. Is that all of them? Did they talk about the map pools? Season 2 map pools. They mentioned it in a blog post. They did not, I guess they haven't mentioned them here. But Hollywood and Gibraltar have been removed. And they are no longer in rotation. And now I think, isn't it supposed to be Blizzard World is one. I don't remember the other one. Was it Rialto? I'll be a little bit sad because Gibraltar and Hollywood were two of my favorite maps in Overwatch. I like the fact that they had a lot of like high ground verticality to play. Blizzard World has a little bit of it, but not nearly as much. And Rialto, I don't think has much of that at all in comparison. Anything else to scroll here through? Let's see. Fix lighting issues, replace some missing pillars on Sanctum. Heroes no longer take damage from their own abilities if they are on the other side of a friendly barrier. Okay, wait. What kind of niche thing is this affecting? Okay, so if I'm a Pharah ulting a wall and a Sigma puts his shield in front of me, I'm okay. I think that's it. Or maybe like a Tracer throws her pulse on someone, but she's on the other side of her own Winston bubble, I guess. She doesn't die to it. Cassie, Doomfist, Diva, Junker Queen. Pharah fixed a bug that reduced the ult cost of Rocket Barrage. For those who don't know, this is actually a massive Pharah nerf for Season 2, because for all of Season 1, Pharah's ult, you could build it like, I think it was 25% faster for all of Season 1. She had barrage basically every fight, and so that was a bug. They've confirmed they fixed a bug that reduced the ult cost of Rocket Barrage, so she will be going back to her slower ultimates. Although, to be honest, chat, if Pharah is nerfed, yeah, I take that back actually, because most players when they get Pharah's ultimate, they immediately die. And so I think actually for, Blizzard's balancing around gold level players by ensuring that Pharah builds her ult slower, they're actually buffing Pharah. Okay, I think it's actually like a buff overall to the character for your average player. So I'll take that as a win. Fix an issue where Soldier 76 was unable to crit hit max range enemies. Okay. Winton resolved an issue with Werewolf Winston skin and the excuse me highlight intro turning Winston red. Fix an issue with melee not correctly animating if used to cancel alt fire. Okay. Is there anything else we need to go over here? I think we went over basically everything, huh? I'm trying to think. We've gone over all the patch notes, right? We're good. Where are my Genji buffs? Genji needs more nerfs, actually. Sorry, buddy. Come back next time. That's tough.